Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the forum of the group exhibit Hydrogen and Fuel Cells. We have now an interesting talk about solutions for material handling and airports with the Business Development Manager Steve Jones from ITM Power. And I would like to announce you a new moderator here on stage, which is Dr. David Hart, here right behind me. He is Director of E4 Tech and Head of Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Research at the Imperial College London Centre for Energy Policy and Technology. And I'm very looking forward to that talk, David Hart, with Steve together here on stage. Just go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. And in fact, I'm not going to be doing much talking, so it's a great pleasure to be able to interview Steve to understand a little bit more about what ITM Power is doing, particularly in this material handling space. So, Steve, you're a business development manager. Clearly, the business is emerging. We're talking a little bit about field trials, but it would help to set the scene a little bit about what ITM does and why materials handling is interesting for you as a company.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, first of all, ITM Power is a UK-based energy storage and clean fuel company. Primarily, we manufacture electrolyzers, which, as most of you probably know, produce hydrogen from electricity and water. We've recently launched a range of CE-marked electrolyzer products for various sizes of hydrogen production, starting with some quite small units for backup power and domestic use, going right the way up to larger systems which are primarily designed for large-scale renewable energy storage and clean fuel. So primarily the technology that we're talking about with materials handling vehicles is part of our H-Fuel range. So this is electrolyzers that are used to provide clean fuel for vehicles, whether that be road-going vehicles or, in this case, materials handling vehicles. The materials handling market is an interesting one for ITM, primarily because it's a captured fleet, so it has a very repeatable drive cycle. The vehicles stay in one area, therefore they can return to a central refueling place on multiple occasions. And also the fact that most of materials handling, large-scale materials handling, takes place indoors, where emissions from internal combustion vehicles are not allowed. So what we're looking at is hydrogen as a direct replacement for battery-powered vehicles.
Thanks, Steve. And why is hydrogen a good replacement for a battery-powered vehicle in a forklift application? What is it what benefits do you get?
Sure. Okay. Well, the benefits are broadly split into three sections. The first of which surrounds the physical space that's available inside a distribution facility, inside a factory. The current setup is you have a range of vehicles that operate on batteries. When the battery is flat, the vehicle operator will drive to a central place where there are a large number of batteries on charge. They will lift the battery out and swap it with a new battery and then go back to work. So the physical space that the battery charging plant takes up within the factory is quite a significant volume, and that's volume that otherwise could be filled with stock for that particular company. So it's kind of dead space if all it's doing is being an area where batteries are charged. So with hydrogen solutions, that area is removed. The hydrogen generation equipment is generally outside of the building. The refueling points are inside, but they're very small in comparison with the battery charging plant. So that's one point, is that you save floor space inside. The second point is you remove the labour, the health and safety issues around swapping, charging and maintaining batteries within the factory. One of the forklift truck manufacturers that I spoke to recently said that the majority of health and safety incidents that occur within distribution facilities are around the manual handling activities with batteries. You know, they're 300, 400, 700 kilos in some cases, so physically moving them around is a problem. And the biggest benefit for hydrogen versus batteries is actually the productivity gains that you can realize by using hydrogen. Hydrogen with a fuel cell in a forklift truck effectively acts like a battery that's 100% charged 100% of the time. So normally in a battery, what you'll find is that the speed of the truck and the performance of the truck is very good at the start of the shift, But as the battery drains, as the battery becomes less and less charged, the performance of that truck drops, the speed of the truck drops, the speed at which it can lift heavy loads drops. With hydrogen, because it's a fuel cell power, it's effectively like having a battery that's 100% charged the whole shift. So there's productivity gains there. There's productivity gains because it takes 90 seconds to refuel a fuel cell powered forklift truck. It takes 8 hours to charge a battery, or if you're swapping a battery, it takes probably 10 minutes to swap a battery. So there's productivity gains there as well. So the big win is productivity.
So Steve, there's a couple of points come out of that. I think one is, and there's clearly, it's very nice to do that analysis on paper. One of the things that needs to happen is that the industry needs to actually take this up, and certainly in North America that seems to be happening. One of the reasons we're here is to talk about the trial that you've just completed, and it would be great to get some of the reactions from that, not only from the organisers, I mean yourselves and Marks and Spencer, but also from the people who had to drive these things. How did they react?
Yeah, well, the trial that we're speaking about here is a 6-week trial with Marks and Spencer's, who are a major UK retailer and food distributor. And the trial was ITM turned up with our on-site hydrogen generation equipment, which is actually in the car park at the fair today. We had a small fleet of 4 materials handling vehicles that run on hydrogen. They were a direct replacement for the battery vehicles, so 4 of their battery vehicles were taken off the fleet, replaced with the hydrogen vehicles. And we ran a 6-week trial where we gathered a lot of data, looked at the productivity increases, but also talked to the guys that were actually on the floor using these vehicles. And the main feedback was that they liked the fact that they didn't suffer any lag across the shift. So at the end of the shift, the truck was still performing as good as at the start of the shift. They also liked the fact that they could leave their station, go to get more fuel, and be back at their station in less than 3 minutes, which is they were talking 15 minutes to go and change a battery and come back. So the guys on the ground, were really enthusiastic about the trial, and actually towards the end of the trial, there were certain guys that would come in early in order to get first dibs on the fuel cell trucks because there was only a few of them there. So.
And can we talk about cost? I mean, how does that compare in terms of competitiveness? Because you get these great gains, but there must be a cost differential.
Yeah, definitely. I think the business case for hydrogen in materials handling is one that you have to look at over the lifetime of the plant. So the fuel cell power packs that replace the batteries, these are 10-year products. They last for 10 years. Batteries are probably on a 3 to 5 year replacement cycle. So with hydrogen as a materials handling fleet, your CapEx cost is higher initially. The hydrogen generation equipment and the hydrogen fuel cells are more expensive than the battery technology. There's no getting around that. But the additional savings that you make in productivity gains over a 5, 7, 10-year timeline, real offer good rates of return for the customer.
And what about for you? I mean, your stand is just there. You produce electrolyzers by and large, refueling stations. What do you offer? I mean, this was a trial that I guess you set up. But what do you offer? A package? Do you offer the fuel only? How does that work?
Yeah, well, we're currently working with fuel cell manufacturers, fuel cell power pack manufacturers. We're working with the actual materials handling vehicle manufacturers, and obviously ourselves, who are the fuel providers. So what we're looking to do is incorporate all of those 3 elements together, so that what the customer actually ends up paying is a single charge, whether that be a purchase agreement, whether that be a contract hire or a lease agreement. We're trying to bring all 3 sectors together in one payment.
Okay, that's interesting, and I think that's a useful model, and certainly maybe experience from North America suggests that that's the way you need to provide that. The North American market has opened up for materials handling over the last couple of years. Up until now, Europe has not been such a good place. What do you think is changing that makes you want to enter that market now?
Yeah, well, I think the North American market has been the starting place for all of this technology. A number of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that there are government subsidies in place for people to uptake hydrogen technology. So they're getting certain relief on capital expenditure to actually put the equipment in. So that's obviously an incentive for them. They also have large centralized distribution warehouses that have a high number of materials handling vehicles in one location. And with hydrogen power, the economics look better and better the larger the fleet that you're servicing is. Europe has been battery dominated and continues to be battery dominated, but I think some of the lessons that have been learned in North America are finding their way into Europe now. The fact that our labour costs in Europe continue to rise is another benefit, because the big productivity savings are all about how much your staff are being paid. So that's another benefit for the European market.
And what happens next? So this was a trial. It sounds like it was a successful trial. It sounds like the operators were happy. Marks and Spencers, will they start to roll out more fleet? Will they actually enter the market? Where do you go next?
Okay, well, the trial was, the primary target for the trial was to generate a lot of data to be able to present a case to Marks and Spencers to show them exactly how hydrogen can benefit their business. So we've done that. We're producing a detailed report for them, which we're submitting. After that, Marks and Spencers will review the benefits. They'll review the technology in terms of its potential for both existing sites of retrofitting battery systems, but also new distribution facilities that they've got in planning. And it will go from there. So really it's the report from the end of the trial which is important to Marks and Spencers and how we take it forward.
And other companies, other countries, other trials, or are you moving sort of directly into a business proposition, as it were?
Well, I think because we've got the mobile demonstration hydrogen refueling plant, we have now a small fleet of vehicles. What we'll do is we'll expand the trial that we did with Marks and Spencers and offer that trial to other customers in different sectors, and we'll use the trial as a method of engaging with those customers, and then continue from there.
And what about competition? I mean, there are clearly people who have been doing this in North America for a while. There are some fairly big players out there who have really started to get into the infrastructure provision side in particular. How do you see that playing out in Europe? Who are the players? Yeah,
well, I think the fact that the competitors are out there, it's big business now. Everybody's talking about it. So from that point of view, it's good. It's good for all of us. It raises the profile of the technology. People are interested. People are ringing us rather than the other way around now. And our technology is evolving, and we feel that our efficiency figures and our cost base for our fueling products positions us well in that market. We think that on-site hydrogen generation is a good option for a lot of companies, removing the need to actually deliver hydrogen to site on a daily or a weekly basis. Our technology is evolving so that we feel that we can offer a very competitive package now.
And how scalable is it? I mean, you're doing 4 forklifts for this particular trial. How many could you have fueled with the same fueler? What do you see as a good sweet spot?
Sure. Well, I mean, most of the fleets in the UK are anywhere between sort of 50 to 200 vehicles on one particular site. As I said before, the economics look better and better the more vehicles are on site. So for very small fleets, it's hard for hydrogen to compete with a battery system. In terms of scalability, our electrolyzer plant is a fully modular system. So for the same basic platform, we can start with a small amount of hydrogen generation, and that can grow as the penetration of vehicles grows within that company. So our technology is very much geared around scalability and the modular nature of increasing the generation capacity to match the demand.
Okay, thank you. It says in the title we're going to talk about materials handling and airports. I know we haven't left much time for the airports, but could you just touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, airports are, at this present moment in time, a kind of secondary activity to the materials handling activities that we're going for. But the similarities of airport fleets and materials handling fleets mean that the same basic technology can work in both situations. Airports, it's a captive fleet again. The duty cycle of the vehicles is very repeatable. Their duty cycle shares quite a lot of common similarities with forklift truck and counterbalance type vehicles. So airports are obviously very conscious of decarbonising and reducing local emissions that take place on the airfield. So hydrogen is obviously a zero emission fuel. So again, that's very interesting for them.
And have you done anything specific in the last 30 seconds? Have you?
At the moment, we haven't had any trials at airports. We've been talking to a number of airports. We did a host trial with some Ford Transit vans at a UK airport recently, and we've been engaging with those, following up on it. But we see a host trial in the not too distant future for an airport as well.
Excellent. We have maybe another minute. I don't know if anybody has a question from the floor. I've been told to invite. I have to come down with the microphone, so perhaps if you could say just who you are, that would be great.
Wolfgang Stein. Does the use of hydrogen cars cause any hazards if you do this in closed shop areas?
No. In short, no. Obviously, it's a compressed flammable gas, so there are certain safety codes and standards that you need to employ, and you need to fit systems such as hydrogen leak detection, emergency stop systems to the refuelers that are operating effectively inside a factory. But done sensibly and done properly, then there is no real safety considerations. And considering the amount of material handling incidents that go around, moving batteries around, I think that there'll be a lot less health and safety issues with hydrogen systems.
Excellent, thank you. Well, I'd like to wrap up. I'd like to thank Steve Jones very much for that.
Yeah,
very interesting and informative. The ITM stand is just over there, and I think you said the refueler is operating...
Yeah, the refueler is in the ride and drive area. We do live refuels at 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock each day, so feel free to go outside and take a look at one of those.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and
thank you
for listening.